At the edge of a vast kingdom, where golden sunlight kissed ancient stone walls and silence hung heavy in the air, a man stood before the towering gates of the king's palace. He was not dressed in silk, he wore no crown. No guards announced his arrival, and yet, when he stepped forward, the gates opened. Not because he had power over the guards, but because his presence was the power. The guards, without exchanging a single word, stepped aside, as if moved by an invisible force, as if commanded by something deeper than authority, something older than law. The spiritual teacher walked slowly into the palace grounds. His feet touched marble that had been polished by generations of human pride. His eyes reflected no desire, no hunger, only awareness. He moved through the grand corridors where kings had walked, where ministers had plotted, where history had been written and rewritten by men who believed they were permanent. Finally, he reached the grand hall. There, on a throne carved of gold and draped in jewels, sat the king. The king looked up. He recognized him instantly. "You," the king said with a voice that echoed through the chamber. "What do you want?" The master bowed slightly, calm, still, unmoved. "I would like a place to sleep tonight in this inn." A silence followed. Then, the king laughed. But it was not a laugh of joy. It was sharp, mocking, filled with ego. "This," the king said, spreading his arms wide as he gestured to the palace around him, "is not an inn. It is my palace." The master tilted his head slightly, as if listening not to the king, but to the truth that existed deeper than his words. He asked softly, "Then may I ask you, your majesty, who owned this palace before you?" The king paused. "My father," he replied, a hint of pride in his voice. "But he is dead. And before him?" The teacher continued, "My grandfather. He is also dead." The master nodded slowly. "And before him?" Again the king answered, "Others. Rulers long forgotten. All dead." The master's gaze fell gently upon the king. "This place, where men dwell for a short time, then move on. Give way to another, and another. Did I hear you say that it is not an inn?" The laughter disappeared. The king's mouth closed. In that moment, a deadly realization tried to enter the mind of the ruler, but his ego stood at the door. Because the truth is this: the world is a temporary place, and we are only its guests. Yet we do not live like guests. We live as if we will rule this land forever. We build houses as if they will never crumble. We build careers as if titles will follow us into the afterlife. We build bank accounts as if money can buy eternity. We are born empty-handed. Yet we spend our lives trying to fill our hands with things that will eventually slip away. We run, we chase, we accumulate. And for what, in the end? The richest man and the poorest man lie in the same silence. The king wears a crown of gold. The beggar wears a crown of dust. And the earth accepts them both, without bias, sooner or later. You are going to depart. And at that moment, nothing you own will come with you. Not your house, not your car, not your followers, not your reputation, only you and the life you lived. But here's the strange part. The very thought of death makes us uncomfortable. We turn our eyes away from it. The moment someone speaks of death, the air grows heavy, the room grows silent, faces grow tense. Why? Because deep within ourselves, we have created illusions, beautiful illusions, comfortable illusions, and death. Death destroys them all. It destroys ego. It destroys false identity. It destroys the idea that I am special and permanent, and that is why we fear it. We don't fear death. We fear losing the lie. From childhood, we are taught how to live, but no one teaches us how to die. We are taught how to earn, but not how to let go. We are taught how to build, but not how to dissolve. So when death appears in thought, it shakes us. A mere reminder of it can send a man into depression. He suddenly realizes that all his struggles might be meaningless, and instead of exploring this realization, He buries it deep inside. He turns up the noise of the world. He distracts himself. He fills his time, his mind, his body with activity. So he does not have to sit in silence with the truth. But what if? What if I told you something different? What if I told you that the acceptance of death is not darkness, but a ladder to liberation? A ladder that frees you from invisible chains. Yes, climbing that ladder is difficult. Because step by step, it destroys everything that is unreal, everything that is man-made, everything that is false. It shatters the masks you wear, the roles you play, the identity you cling to. But what if, after that destruction, a new being is born? A being that does not fear, a being that does not pretend, a being that does not live in illusion, an awakened being, free from prisons and cages. Because whether you realize it or not, you are living inside a prison. The prison is not made of iron, it is made of thoughts. The prison is not locked by chains, it is locked by beliefs. The prison is the mind, and the worst part is, it doesn't feel like a prison, because you have lived in it for so long. It has become your home. You have decorated it with comfort. You have given it meaning. You have given it identity, and so you defend it, even when it is the very thing that suffocates you. That is why death feels like an enemy, because it is the one thing that has the power to tear down the walls of that prison. But leave the morbid ideas about death. Death is not dark. Death is not evil. Death is not a curse. Fear is the real poison. Death is simply a door, a return, a transformation. When a seed breaks in the soil, it feels like death. But that breaking is the beginning of life. So do not fear death. Turn towards it, look at it, contemplate it, embrace it, and see what happens to your mind. See what happens to your attachments. See what happens to your ego. Now listen carefully to these words, because they hold deep power. Most people think that death is the opposite of life. They think awareness of death means the end of happiness, the end of joy, the end of pleasure. But this is not the case. Death is not opposite to life. Fear is opposite to life. Death does not oppose existence. Fear suffocates existence. To close your eyes to death is to close them to life. And what could be more morbid than living like a blind man in a world full of light? From the common man's perspective, death and even the idea of suicide are horrific, dark, and unthinkable. But from a higher perspective, not the act, but the awareness, they are empowering. Because they confront you with the raw truth, that nothing is permanent, that time is limited, that every breath is a gift, that every moment matters. A person who does not have an honest relationship with death is already 9 parts dead. He moves but does not live. He breathes but he is not awake. Only when you accept death do you begin to truly live. You stop wasting time. You stop postponing life. You stop saying one day, because suddenly, this moment becomes sacred. A cup of tea becomes a miracle. A sunset becomes heaven. A hug becomes eternal. Because you know, it will not last. And that is what makes it precious. The man who remembers death is the only man who truly lives. And the man who forgets death is already sleeping. So I will leave you with this final thought. The master was right. The palace is an inn. The world is an inn. Your body is an inn. And one day you will check out. The only question is, when that day comes, will you leave as a prisoner of illusion, or as a free and awakened being?